Okay, yeah. If you're able to see it on your end. Okay. Yeah, we're on.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, to our Quran study. We left off last time at Surah 18, verse 59. So today we will begin Surah 18, verse 60. And inshallah we will finish this surah today. All right. So before we read the Quran, we seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. And we read in the name of God. So you can say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in Arabic or in English, works as well. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. And we ask that God increases our knowledge and teaches us what we never knew. Inshallah. Okay, verse 60. It begins with a subtitle. Valuable lessons from Moses and his teacher. Moses said to his servant, I will not rest until I reach the point where the two rivers meet, no matter how long it takes. When they reached the point where they met, they forgot their fish, and it found its way back to the river sneakily. After they passed that point, he said to his servant, Let us have lunch. All this traveling had thoroughly exhausted us. He said, Remember when we sat by the rock back there? I paid no attention to the fish. It was the devil who made me forget it, and it found its way back to the river strangely. Moses said, That was the place we were looking for. They traced their steps back. So, just a few comments here. Moses didn't say inshallah, I think. Or maybe he did it internally, I don't know. So they walked for quite a distance, and I believe they rested somewhere on the way, and that's where they lost their fish, the fish, because they were so focused on the goal to reach where the river meets. So obviously they rested next to a rock. And they didn't realize they had lost their fish until they later on, when they reached the spot where the two rivers meet. And then they had to go all the way back. In 63 it says, I paid no attention to the fish. It was the devil who made me forget it, and it found its way back to the river. Strangely. Okay, so they lost the fish while resting, basically. And then they continued from there on their journey, and then they traced their steps back again to where they lost their fish. I'm just trying to put the timeline into order because I have read this section multiple times and not quite understood the timeline. So I hope that helped. Let's continue. 65. They found, so they are now back to where they rested, next to the rock that they had passed before, where they lost their fish. 65. They found one of our servants, whom we blessed with mercy and bestowed upon him from our own knowledge. Moses said to him, can I follow you, that you may teach me some of the knowledge and the guidance bestowed upon you? And he said, I'm gonna switch between Moses and the teacher. I'm not gonna say he said and he said. I'm gonna say the teacher said, you cannot stand to be with me. And he continues, how can you stand that which you do not comprehend? Moses said, you will find me, God willing, patient. I will not disobey any command you give me. The teacher said, if you follow me, then you shall not ask me about anything unless I choose to tell you about it. So they went. When they boarded a ship, the teacher bore a hole in it. Moses said, did you bore a hole in it to drown its people? You have committed something terrible. And the teacher said, did I not say that you cannot stand to be with me? Moses said, I am sorry. Do not punish me for my forgetfulness. Do not be too harsh with me. So that was incident 1. Let's continue. Verse 74. So they went. When they met a young boy, the teacher killed him. Moses said, why did you kill such an innocent soul who did not kill another soul? You have committed something horrendous. The teacher said, did I not tell you that you cannot stand to be with me? Moses replies, if I ask you about anything else, then do not keep me with you. You have seen enough apologies from me. So they went. So that was incident number 2. So they went. When they reached a certain community, they asked the people for food, but they refused to host them. Soon they found a wall about to collapse, and the teacher fixed it. Moses said, you could have demanded a wage for that. And that was incident 3. Now we go to a subtitle. Verse 78, subtitled, there is a good reason for everything. The teacher said, now we have to part company, but I will explain to you everything you could not stand. As for the ship, it belonged to poor fishermen, and I wanted to render it defective. There was a king coming after them who was confiscating every ship forcibly. As for the boy, his parents were good believers, and we saw that he was going to burden them with his transgression and disbelief. We willed that your Lord substitute in his place another son, one who is better in righteousness and kindness. As for the wall, it belonged to 2 orphan boys in the city. Under it there was a treasure that belonged to them. Because their father was a righteous man, your Lord wanted them to grow up and attain full strength, then extract their treasure. Such is your mercy from your Lord. I did none of that of my own volition. This is the explanation of the things you could not stand. There's a footnote, verse 80. It's verse 80 where he killed the boy. Adolf Hitler was a cute and seemingly innocent child. You know, all children are cute and innocent. Had he died as a child, many would have grieved, and many would have even questioned God's wisdom. We learn from these profound lessons that there is a good reason behind everything. So let me go back here. I'm gonna do some commenting. So 65, when Moses and his servant track back to the rock where they lost the fish, they find an individual, a man, who was blessed with mercy, and the key word here is our own knowledge. So this man was blessed with knowledge that is not necessarily available to us without authorization, without permission from God. So this is from our own knowledge, and this knowledge is about the future, about the past and the future. So this man was blessed with knowledge about the past and the future. And Moses saw him and said, "Can I follow you, that you may teach me some of the knowledge and the guidance bestowed upon you?" So we see here it is just in real life how we pay for tuition or college or education. To be taught, to learn things. It is normal to go to someone and ask them to teach you. Teach me, Moses says, that you may teach me some of the knowledge and the guidance bestowed upon you. So Moses wanted to follow this guy, this man, so he could learn from his knowledge and guidance, from the knowledge and guidance bestowed upon the person. So it doesn't say that this guy, this teacher, is guiding Moses. It means that Moses will learn by his own will what this guy or individual is sharing. For example, you see someone giving to charity, you learn from that, and you give to charity yourself. You learn from their guidance. You look at how guidance from God has affected that individual, and you learn from that. And then the teacher replies to Moses and says, "You cannot stand to be with me." So he predicted the future. As I said, this individual was blessed with knowledge about the future. And he's telling Moses, "You cannot stand to be with me." He's giving him the facts. And the next verse he says, "How can you stand that which you do not comprehend?" So this teacher knows that Moses will not comprehend these things. And then Moses, he tries very hard. Moses says, "You will find me, God willing, patient. I will not disobey any command you give me." So he was desperate. He was willing to learn. He wanted to follow this person and learn. It's like in real life when you want to learn a trade. So you're willing to work for free just to learn. So it was like a similar attitude here. Moses was really interested in learning from this person. And then he tells him, "Okay, so if you're gonna follow me, then you're not allowed to ask me about anything unless I choose to tell you about it." So they went, and he bore a hole into the ship, as I read earlier. Why? Well, because there was a... Well, okay, let's first see here. So Moses complains, "Oh my God, why did you destroy the boat? Why did you bore a hole?" Can you imagine you go to a place and you see some guy on your boat boring a hole in it, trying to sink your boat? It just makes no sense. But I mean, you would be devastated. Like, someone is on my boat trying to destroy it. So Moses was really like, "Wow, what are you doing?" And then the teacher explains that, okay, this is much later. No, actually, okay, let me continue here. So the teacher explains to Moses later on that he is boring the boat, rendering it useless, because there was a king coming to confiscate all the ships forcibly. So God sent this man to bore a hole in this ship to prevent the king from capturing it. And what I think a lesson here as well is, if someone, and you guys have to correct me later on if I'm wrong, but for example, if someone transgresses the law, the balance, like this king was doing, he was forcibly stealing people's property. That's forbidden. That's corruption. Then you are allowed to counter that in any means necessarily, whatever is available to you. Because if we look at it, boring a hole in the ship to trick the king into ignoring it, that's deceiving. That's like a scheme to deceive the king, and that's okay. That's a method to fight against evil. Evil doesn't have to. Evil doesn't deserve your, like, if someone transgresses the balance, then so should you, so to speak. So that's how I understood it. So if someone transgresses the balance, then then they unleash consequences upon themselves. Then it's okay to do things that would counter their evil. So that's that incident. Then the incident where the teacher kills an innocent, quote unquote, innocent child, innocent young boy. And Moses complains, like, "Oh my God, you killed an innocent soul. You did something horrendous." Yes, he did something horrendous. It did, like, yeah, sure. It's forbidden to kill. He did something horrendous, but I mean that Moses is stating a fact. But we don't know. I mean, this servant that God taught knowledge, certain knowledge. Maybe he had authority. He was commanded to do it. Yeah, oh yeah, he was commanded to do it. He was commanded to kill the child because it was an evil child. He would grow up and be evil. And Rashad Khalifa gives the example of Adolf Hitler. And even today, you can ask somebody, if you could go back in time to when Adolf Hitler was a child, would you kill him? And a lot of people will say yes. So there's a hypocrisy in many people. For example, when they complain, for example, many children die in accidents or whatever, like disasters, and they complain and they blame God and they say bad things about God because of it. But when you ask them, would you go back in time and kill Hitler? They would say yes. So they are hypocrites. There's a hypocrisy. And the lesson from this is, well, I personally don't have children yet, and I don't know how I would react if my child died. But as I'm sitting here, my response would be, I submit. Maybe it was a bad child. Maybe that child, they did their term on this earth, and they went on to the next life. That was it. Or maybe God saved me, spared me a lot of headache. Like a bad child, that's the worst nightmare for a parent. A bad child who uses your resources to do bad things, brings shame to your name, and all kinds of stuff. I'm gonna give some examples. For example, like today there's so much filth like prostitutes, like those who make dirty movies. Can you imagine being a parent to such a child, like an individual? Like what? How shameful! Like ashamed. I mean, if God doesn't take if my child becomes bad like that, then I pray that God either takes my child or takes me to spare me the shame and seeing such a disgusting, experiencing such a disgusting uh, event or whatever. To see our own child doing sins and whatever. All right, moving on. That was incident 2. Incident 3 is when they reach a community. So we know that this teacher is not a messenger or a prophet. He was just a regular guy who God blessed with uh, guidance and certain knowledge from out of this world, the future and stuff like that. It's just it can happen to anyone, and it doesn't necessarily mean a messenger or something. And the reason why I'm saying this is because this guy went to a community and he asked them to host them, like food, somewhere to sleep, and things like that. He didn't go there to preach. He didn't go to a community to preach. He went there for food. So this was like a traveling hermit, so to speak. But that's my opinion. So yeah, they went to a community. They refused to host them, give them food and shelter. So they continued. They were walking out of the city, away from the community, when they stumbled upon a wall that was about to crumble. So this teacher fixed it. And then Moses complains, like, it's not a complaint, but he's saying, oh, it is a complaint, but it's like a deceptive, not deceptive, but like a positive complaint. He says, oh, you could have asked money for that. So it is a complaint because the teacher didn't ask for money for repairing the wall. And then it ends, at the end, Moses broke his promise. He said, I promise I would never complain about anything. And if I do complain, I will, let's see here. Yeah, in 76, Moses said, if I ask you about anything else, then do not keep me with you. You have seen enough apologies from me. So when Moses said, oh, you could have asked for a wage for fixing the wall, that was a complaint. And that's when the teacher said, okay, that's good enough. We have to part company now, but I will explain everything to you before we part ways. And the explanations are very thorough, like very, as if explaining to a child all these complex things that this child doesn't understand. Like, oh, okay, so as for the ship, it belonged to poor fishermen. There was a king coming after them. The child that was, as for the boy, his parents were good believers, and he was going to burden them with his disbelief. And as for the wall, it belonged to 2 orphans. So their father was dead, but their father was a righteous man. So God wanted to help these orphans. Anyways, let's continue. Subtitle: Zulkarnain, the one with two horns or two generations. Verse 83. They ask you about Zulkarnain. Say, I narrate to you some of his history. We granted him authority on earth and provided him with all kinds of means. Then he pursued one way. When he reached the far west, he found the sun setting on a vast ocean and found people there. We said, O Zulkarnain, you can rule as you wish, either punish or be kind to them. He said, as for those who transgress, we will punish them. Then, when they return to the Lord, he will commit them to more retribution. As for those who believe and lead a righteous life, they receive a good reward. We will treat them kindly. So that was to the west, where the sun, he found the sun setting on a vast ocean. So that could be like the Atlantic, I think, like west of Africa, North Africa, maybe, or far west. Yeah, somewhere over there, or Spain, because that's west, and it's blocked by a big ocean, vast ocean. Then he pursued another way. When he reached the far east, he found the sun rising on people who had nothing to shelter them from it. Naturally, we were fully aware of everything he found out. So he pursued then far east. I don't know where that is. Like, is it India perhaps? I don't know. Like at the edge. There's a lot of questions about Zulkarnain's identity. But when we read these stories, it talks about, for example, the verse I just read now. When he reached the far east, he found the sun rising on people who had nothing to shelter them from it. So this must have been a time where people were maybe not advanced enough to build houses, perhaps. Anyway, it's not important who he was. It's just the story. It's the story that is interesting. He then pursued another way. When he reached the valley between two palisades, he found people whose language was barely understandable. So, if we presume that Zulkarnain was Semitic or spoke Semitic language, or Greek or Roman or whatever, then the language, then the people who spoke a language that was barely understandable, it means it must have been like not a Semitic language, or related to Greek or Roman. So it's not Latin or Semitic, any of the Semitic languages, or any of the Latin languages, or Greek. So it must have been completely different language, like the Asian languages. Maybe Chinese. That wouldn't surprise me. Okay, let's continue the subtitle. Gog and Magog, verse 94. They said, O Zulkarnain, Gog and Magog are corruptors of the earth. Can we pay you to create a barrier between us and them? he said, "My Lord has given me great bounties. If you cooperate with me, I will build a dam between you and them. Bring to me masses of iron." Once he filled the gap between the two palisades, he said, "Blow." Once it was red hot, he said, "Help me pour tar on top of it." Thus they could not climb it, nor could they bore holes in it. He said, "This is mercy from my Lord. When the prophecy of my Lord comes to pass, he will cause the dam to crumble. The prophecy of my Lord is truth." Okay, so Dhul-Qarnayn is talking about a prophecy, which makes him a prophet. So Dhul-Qarnayn was a prophet, or had some access or authority to know about prophecies. The prophecy of the end of the world, for example. Let's see here. There's a footnote. Footnote for verses 94 to 98. And this is Rashad's writing. "One of my duties as God's messenger of the covenant is to state that Gog and Magog, the final sign before the end of the world, will reappear in the year 2270 AD, or 1700 after Hijrah, just 10 years before the end of the world. Note that Gog and Magog occur in Surah 18 and 21, precisely 17 verses before the end of each surah, representing 17 lunar centuries. See Surah 72 verse 27 and Appendix 25. So yeah, this Gog and Magog is a very important part of the prophecy before the end of the world, and this Dhul-Qarnayn knew about it, so he must have been some form of prophet. And a lot of people debate. There's a debate that say that Dhul-Qarnayn might have been Alexander the Great, but as far as we know, Alexander the Great was never a prophet. So, but again, we don't know. It's just we don't know how old this Dhul-Qarnayn is. Even it could have been like thousands of years before Alexander the Great, even. But that's not the point. Those are unnecessary details. Okay, continuing on verse 99. "At that time, we will let them invade with one another." So this is in the year 2270. There will be a great war. "At that time, we will let them invade with one another. Then the horn will be blown, and we will summon them all together." So there will be a war, a 10-year long war before the end of the world. "We will present hell on that day to the disbelievers. They are the ones whose eyes were too veiled to see my message, nor could they hear. Do those who disbelieve think that they can get away with setting up my servants as gods beside me? We have prepared for the disbelievers hell as an eternal abode." Subtitle: "Examine yourself. Say, shall I tell you who the worst losers are? They are the ones whose works in this life are totally astray, but they think they are doing good. Such are the ones who disbelieved in the revelations of the Lord and in meeting Him. Therefore, their works are in vain. On the day of resurrection, they have no weight. Their just requital is hell in return for their disbelief and for mocking my revelations and my messengers. As for those who believe and lead a righteous life, they have deserved a blissful paradise as their abode. Forever they abide therein. They will never want any other substitute. Subtitle: The Quran, everything we need. Say, if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would run out before the words of my Lord runs out. Even if we double the ink supply, say, I am no more than a human like you, being inspired that your God is one God. Those who hope to meet their Lord shall work righteousness and never worship any other God beside his Lord. Okay, so I'm going back here quickly. So after the war, the 10-year war, the day of judgment will come. Hell will be presented on that day to the disbelievers. And who are the disbelievers? They are the ones whose eyes were too veiled to see God's message, and they didn't hear. For example, you talk to people, and they are so oblivious. They don't take it seriously. Like, what if this is God's words? What if God is saying this, and I should listen? What if? They don't even have that awareness. They're completely oblivious. And we see here God calls, God defines the disbelievers as people who set up servants as gods. This includes like how the Christians set up Jesus as a god even. No, it's clearly says gods. I mean, any servant that you set up beside God is your God. It doesn't matter if you acknowledge it as your God or not. So many Christians have set up Jesus as their God, and we know that the Muhammadans have set up Prophet Muhammad, as their God, and they insist on it. For example, they will write in the mosque God, Allah, and then below it or next to it, they will say Muhammad. It literally just say Allah and then Muhammad next to it. And you tell them, hey, that's shirk, that's idol worship. And they will say, no. They don't see it. It's amazing. Like, why don't they just take a step back and just look at the text itself? It says God and then Muhammad. Like, I don't know. It's sad. It's crazy. And then you have the Buddhists who tell you they don't worship Buddha, but just like the Mohammedans, they go to the temples and they pray to Buddha. Like they have his statue and they ask Buddha for his blessings. All kinds of things. But no, they don't worship Buddha. It's crazy. It's interesting. So this verse teaches us it's not necessary that you call them God. God is telling you that they are your gods. I will read the verse again. Do those who disbelieve think that they can get away with setting up my servants as gods beside me? We have prepared for the disbelievers hell as an eternal abode. So it doesn't matter what your feelings are. It doesn't matter if, for example, let's take a Muhammadan who say, who put Muhammad next to God's name. It doesn't matter if your intention is not to put Muhammad as a God next to God. It doesn't matter if that's what you believe you're doing or not doing. What matters is what God says you are doing. And according to God, when Muhammadans do that, for example, they are putting Muhammad up as a God beside God. And that's God saying it. That's God, that's the Quran. The Quran is telling them this is what you're doing. Stop doing it. And of course, we should also examine ourselves, as Rashad Khalifa wrote here in the subtitle for verse 103. Examine yourself. Shall I tell you who the worst losers are? They are the ones whose works in this life are totally astray, but they think they are doing good. So where have we seen this? So, okay, keep this verse in memory. I will read verse 109, subtitled, The Quran, Everything We Need. Say, if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would run out before the words of my Lord runs out, even if we double the ink supply. So God could have made the Quran twice as big, 10 times as big, infinitely as big. But God, the possessor of all wisdom, gave us a Quran that is exactly what we need. And God is telling us this is all we need. So you have, for example, people who, I'll take an example here, like the people who believe in circumcision. Nowhere is it mentioned in the Quran. And in the Bible, it contradicts other verses in the Bible. Yet, they believe it is part of the religion. They are the ones whose works in this life are totally astray. So they are breaking multiple laws from the Quran, multiple commandments, like religious freedom. We can't force a religion on someone else. So when you circumcise a child, you are forcing your religious belief on the child. That's a direct violation. I don't need to tell you that. You don't need to go to school to learn such a basic logic. Right? But this verse tells us they are the ones whose works in this life are totally astray, but they think they are doing good. So I think that's the incentive. They believe they are doing good, and that's the incentive for them to ignore contradictions or to circumvent or dodge obvious violations of God's commandments. It's the feeling, this illusion they have created for themselves, this illusion that they are doing good because they have tricked themselves that by doing this act, they are doing it for God, and it is righteous and it is good and whatever. And that's how the human being creates illusions. Another example would be eating the bread and the wine or the water, I think, that represents the blood, the flesh and blood of Jesus Christ, as the Christians believe in. So they eat the bread that is supposedly represents the flesh of Jesus, and they drink the water or wine because it represents the blood of Jesus. Okay, so like, is that like a vampire sect? Like a cannibalism, vampirism, like Dracula, I don't know. It's insane. But they have created this illusion. They have tricked themselves that it is a good thing, it's a righteous thing. And this righteousness, this feeling of that it is a good thing, it's what drives them beyond the point of logic, beyond the points of reason. And I think that's how insanity is created. And you can't help them because they are insane, these people. They are totally astray. And in verse 106, their just requital is hell in return for their disbelief and for mocking my revelations and my messengers. And the previous verse is 105. Such are the ones who disbelieved in the revelations of the Lord and in meeting him. Therefore their works are in vain. In their resurrection they have no weight. So if you believe in God, you will ask, wait a minute, dear God, do you approve of this? God, please tell me what you think about this and this. Is this what you want, God? Do you want me to eat bread that represents the flesh of Jesus and drink wine that represents the blood of Jesus? Is that what you want, God? So, or in the case of circumcision, dear God, do you really want me to circumcise my child who is, he's not aware of religion yet, and it does actually, like, what do you think, God? What do you think about this commandment? There shall be no compulsion in religion. Doesn't circumcision break that law? So they don't have any communication with God. This is a trick or a method we can use to expose these people. They don't believe in God. They don't have that awareness. Because if you had an awareness, if you did believe in God and you were aware of God, then you would ask such a question. Is this a good thing, my Lord? Am I in dangerous waters here? You will have a communication with God. And these people obviously don't. Otherwise, they would have questioned their actions. And they would have asked God to enlighten them. They wouldn't have rushed into the action. They would have waited patiently. And they would ask God, please, God, teach me about this teaching here. Teach me about this and this, so that I don't insult you or do any harm, or they back off. They don't want to insult God. They are afraid of God. They have this reverence for God. They keep a distance. They make sure they don't hurt God, or, well, not hurt, but in a sense, in a matter of relations, like They don't hurt the relation with God or insult God or whatever. They don't have that awareness, that reverence, that respect. And we can see that. We can see that in their behavior. And God tells us about their behavior. Yeah, they disbelieve in the revelations of the Lord and in meeting Him. They don't believe in meeting God. They don't believe in it. Otherwise, they would be terrified. If I'm gonna take a step that I know that I'm not certain about, I would back off. I'd rather be safe than sorry. I will ask God, is this okay? Anyways. So that's the end of the reading part, and now we will continue with discussing the verses, inshallah. Let's see. Who's got anything to say?
I have some questions.
Okay.
And some objections to your comments.
Okay.
Firstly, for the verse 74, you said
74.
you meant Moses had to go back for the fish. He forgot about where he left the fish because he didn't say inshallah. I don't think that's correct because maybe you thought that he didn't say inshallah and you inferred this idea because you didn't read the word inshallah in the verses, but
Yeah.
in the Quran, actually, it doesn't really mention all the conversations among people. So he could have said it, but it may not be in the Quran.
Yeah, I did mention that he might have said it internally.
Yeah, but he might have said it out loud even.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's possible, I think. And also for the verse 74.
The reason why I said that is because he admits that the devil made him forget. So he wasn't protected. So that's why I said what I said. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I have several more questions. For the verse 74, from the translation you're reading, you use the word soul, and actually the translation that I have has the word person for the same Arabic word. I'm reading it on the Submission app. The latest update, and I think it's either one of us have a problem. Probably your translation is previous version of Rashad's translation.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it matters. Innocent soul or innocent person, it's the same thing. It's the same message. But yeah, are you using
for sure.
the app?
I don't think app has any problems, but I think the translation that you have is the previous version of. I think Rashad had edited that word, so I just wanted to say.
Yeah, I'm reading from the
also
website. So.
All right. Also, there is another important point for me. You said about there is a note in the verses, one of the verses that you read, and it's about Hitler,
Let me
and
see. Yeah.
and you said if your child dies, you're gonna infer that he or she was a bad child.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, if he dies as a child, that means he died before the age of 40, so he
Hmm.
goes to heaven. That means he at least had minimum goodness to achieve that goal. So, how could you say that he could be a bad child?
Many
I mean,
many bad
I
people
mean,
die
uh,
under the age of 40.
I mean, I could say that he could become a bad person if he
Yeah, but it does.
was
Yeah, I
living,
mean, in my
but
eyes, it's bad for me, but he still deserved paradise. Maybe that's between him and God. But for me, he's a bad child. Maybe, but that was just one option. Maybe that I also said maybe that's his term. He went to this life. He was born, lived a few years, and then died, and that was his purpose, and that's it. So I gave multiple reasons.
all right, I have just one more thing to say.
Yes,
Uh, in the verse 91,
91.
uh, there is a word for Zulkarnain, and the word is found out. And let me read the verse. The verse is, naturally, we were fully aware of everything he found out. I just thought maybe this the phrase he found out could have multiple meanings. For example, I mean, maybe it's the one meaning is literal, like he found out what was in the east and the west, and also maybe the another meaning is that he found out is a more general. For example, he found out the prophecies, he found out some scientific knowledge, he found
Hmm.
out some insights about God's actions and about God's attributes. So I just thought maybe this has more general meaning. I just wanted to add my idea about it. So that's all.
Yeah, that's true. It just say that, uh, like naturally, like obviously, we were fully aware of everything he found out. So I think it could also be like uh, like filling the story. That of course he went to the Far East. He found the sun rising on people who had nothing to shelter them from it, and he found many other things as well. And God tells us in the verse 98, 91, I mean, confirming that, of course, naturally, we were fully aware of everything he found out, to indicate that there was, of course, more. There was a lot to be found. There was so much more in the Far East, than just people who had no shelters. Just like you said. But it's also to tell us that, of course, there is more in the Far East than people with no shelters. Can you imagine just going to the Far East and only finding people without shelter?
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, I agree that it's more like a general statement here. Naturally, what God is saying here is that He's ahead of time, He's ahead of everybody. Whether they find something small or big, whatever. So it's according to God's plan, wherever a person is going and going to do. And also, lessons from Moses. and his teacher are very valuable for all of us. And the teacher, I believe, was not an ordinary man. He was sent by God for Moses to, as a guiding teacher for him. He could have been an angel, he could have been a person, but he was not an ordinary man, for sure. Because obviously he had knowledge and he was doing everything precisely commanded by God for Moses. Moses, what we learn about Moses' personality through the Quran, that he was a little bit impatient person. His upbringing was at Pharaoh's, and in a very royal way, and so God he had to do a very big job for God and very difficult task he had to perform to face Pharaoh and demand to let the children of Israel go. And so God was doing his teaching and learning certain things, that how God controls everything and how there is a reason behind everything that God is running. Even if we say, like sometimes we say, oh, the person was there at the wrong person at the wrong time and wrong place at the wrong time. There is no wrong. God is running everything. This part completely tells us how God has absolute control over everything. And of course, there is a meaning. We can never question God's wisdom. When people say, oh, why would so many kids died in a war? War is not happening randomly. God is ahead of everybody. God knows the future, the present, and the past. So, absolutely, everything is perfectly, precisely done by God's will. There is nothing in our control. And God has a reason for everything, um, even though when we see some kind of apparently unjust is happening in the world, but it can be consequence of something, or it has it is playing a part in the history for the future. Something is going to happen. It's all planned. The only thing we have control over is that our free will to choose God or choose devil the other way. So that's what I wanted to just a little bit explain.
Yeah, I agree. There are certain things, for example, the reason why I believe this servant, this teacher, was just a regular human person like anyone else, is because it says, whom we blessed with mercy. So this is a person who was later on blessed with mercy over the course of his life, and then there was bestowed upon him knowledge from God, certain knowledge. So if it was a servant like an angel or whatever, then the angel would already have known. It wouldn't have been blessed with mercy or bestowed upon it knowledge, because it would already have access to the knowledge and the mercy. So this tells us indirectly that this is just a regular human that wasn't a servant, regular like anyone else, who deserved to be blessed with these qualities. And the things you said about, I agreed with, I agree with everything that you said about we have to, like, everything happens for a reason, like some accidents or coincidences or whatever. They're not coincidences. It's all part of God's plan. But even with the case with this servant who was blessed with mercy and were bestowed upon him from our own knowledge, when he killed that boy, he was guilty of murder. So even if he was blessed by God and he was commanded by God to do it, he is still guilty of murder according to according to the law. So he could easily have been arrested and charged with murder, if that's what God had willed, of course.
Sorry, Ahmed, where
Hmm?
do you find that he was guilty of murder?
In Surah 18, verse 74.
What does it say?
So
Sorry.
they went, when they met a young boy, he killed him. He said, "Why did you kill such an innocent soul?" Moses said, "Why did you kill such an innocent soul, who did not kill another soul? You have committed something horrendous."
So where does the teacher say he was guilty?
No, he's guilty by laws, by
No, let's not. I just want to say that we shouldn't be explaining things which are not even there. This guy is completely
No, but for example,
doing
if you
a
go out
mission by
now and
God.
you kill someone, you're gonna be arrested and charged with murder.
But does it say in the Quran? This
No, it
guy
doesn't need to
is
say in the
doing a
Quran.
specific job by God's
It's yeah, but
God's
it's
leave.
obvious.
It's not. We cannot read into obvious. All I'm trying to say is, let's not read
And
what is not there. The whole
yeah, and the,
purpose of
it is
this
there.
paragraph, it is not
For
there.
example, Moses says, "Oh, you have committed a
Moses
horrendous."
thinks, but not this
Yeah,
person though.
yeah, exactly. Moses is following God's laws.
Moses.
So
Moses is
according to Moses.
Ahmed. Can you bear with me for a minute, dear?
Yes.
I gather you're saying that this guy was guilty of murder. This guy is not saying anything about guilt or anything. Yes, Moses is questioning why would he kill somebody who hasn't killed anybody, like a young person. He is questioning what kind of teacher is this that doing these kind of things, but this guy is not showing any remorse because he's following God's commandments. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
all I'm saying is that let's not describe a statement which isn't there. That's all. Thank
yeah,
you.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying this teacher would have easily been caught and charged with murder. And that's a fact. And even Moses was shocked, like, "Oh, you committed something horrendous." That's just a fact. I'm not saying that God is going to punish this teacher for murder. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that he, according to the laws, technically committed murder. So, going back to what you said earlier, the things that happen in the world, coincidence, not coincidence, but we see someone, like something happening. For example, someone beats up another person. That doesn't mean that the one doing the beating is is like gets a free pass. Like they still have to face court. They still have to maybe pay a compensation and all those things. It doesn't say that we have to sit back and say, "Oh yeah, God did it. It's all according to God's will. It's all according to like some master plan." There's an obligation, if we see injustice, that it must be. So, for example, if you see someone murdering someone, you have to carry out justice. You have to pay compensation, and if that's what the parent wants, on whatever. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I am aware of all the consequences of
Hmm.
murder, and nobody gets a free pass.
Yeah.
But I am just pointing out this whole journey of Moses and his teacher has some other lessons for us, and we shouldn't be describing things which are not there, like that person feeling guilty or not. Obviously, Moses was going to question that he committed a horrendous crime. Of course, he did. But that person knows, because this is a different scenario. Person knows what he's doing because he's commanded to do that.
Yeah.
That's
No, I
why.
didn't mean he was guilty. He felt guilty. I didn't say
Yeah,
he felt guilty.
yeah.
That's not what I said.
I was just trying to correct that. We
Mm.
shouldn't assume what he's saying. He's not saying anything here except what is in the Quran. That's all.
Mm. For example, if there were guards who witnessed this teacher killing the boy, then the guards will have chased him or even
Ahmad,
killed the
but there are
teacher.
no guards here. Let's not elaborate what's there and what isn't. That's not the point. The point is what is. I know what you mean by, like, Moses is wondering, Moses is worried, why did he do that? There could be consequences. But my whole point is that this person, the teacher, isn't saying anything. He's just following God's commandment to teach Moses some lesson. Obviously, Moses, as a human being, thinking, what's going on, right? But we cannot elaborate what could have been, what is there, that is going to take away from the main lesson which we are God is
No. This is
presenting.
no.
Yeah.
It's important to know that it's not like he was. I mean, he was. You could say he was lucky, but it was all according to God's will to make sure that he didn't get caught.
I also want to add something.
For example,
Okay, just go on.
let me give the example of the boat. For example, perhaps the fishermen weren't even there. Maybe they were asleep. Maybe it was night or whatever, and they didn't notice that this teacher and Moses went up to their boat and bore a hole in it. Otherwise, the fishermen would have stopped them. But God made sure the circumstances allowed the teacher and Moses to get on the boat and give enough time for the teacher to bore a hole in the boat. Otherwise, he would have been stopped and maybe even arrested or even worse consequences. So it is of course important. I mean, there's a lesson in that too, that God created these circumstances so they could go on from the first meeting, to the boat, from the boat to the killing of the child, from the killing of the child to the wall, and then separating.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I think I was trying to talk earlier from my computer, and
Oh.
there was some issues. But yeah, I think that like saying that someone was guilty of murder doesn't necessarily mean that they were feeling guilty. So I don't think that's what Ahmed was saying, and I think he was just saying that it shows that he actually did commit the murder. I mean, he killed a child, and that is a fact, right? So that's not really reading into it, in my opinion. And I mean, and sometimes, like, to me, I think sometimes, like, exploring these studies, and I mean exploring during these studies, the verses that we read and hearing each other's perspectives, like, help us understand and look at different angles of these stories, right? Especially, I think this story, where we see that everything happened for a good reason and it was done in accordance with God's will. Like, we learn a lot of lessons.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if I saw you on my boat boring a hole, I would beat you up.
right.
Anyway, someone wanted to comment?
I know Furkan wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, I think Furkan, you mentioned a verse about the soul versus a person, and I think well, you're right. That is something that the message of the covenant changed, but some text that has been floating around had some old editions, and it was not corrected, and I think that's where it is in the old submission app. So God willing, in the new one, it will have the current one. But I think the latest one where the message of the covenant left, he changed it to from soul. He changed it to person because you can't actually kill a soul. You know, you can kill a person, but not the soul. So that's probably why.
Yeah, the app that I have also says person, but Wehbe said soul. So I just wanted to add to the discussion that, I mean, not related to the discussion that you were having, but I was reading a book by a psychologist named Carl Gustav Jung, and he was a former friend uh, and very close with Freud, Sigmund Freud. And Jung actually wrote a book named The Four Archetypes. And in that book, he interpreted the Surah number 18, Al-Kahf. I mean, if you're interested, you can check how he interpreted the Surah. I mean, it's very interesting for such a European, very known psychologist to interpret a Surah from the Quran.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Really? What is
from
the
a psychological point of view?
What is the name of this person?
Jung. The last name of him is Jung, Carl Gustav Jung.
Carl Jung. Okay, okay. Really? He did that?
The book is The Four Archetypes.
Oh, also another interesting thing.
Thank you.
I think one of the movies. Do you remember, Ahmed, which movie it is, where they tried to take from this story of Moses?
I don't know.
Funny one. I think it's like
the Exodus.
Every West.
The Exodus, maybe.
The Exodus.
No, I think it's like. Yeah, I have to look at it.
I think there's a one called the Nile as well, maybe.
No. It's not. Well, they changed the story. They didn't. It's not a biblical movie. It's just a regular movie, but they put they stole some of the ideas from this whole story, and they put it in there. I'll find it.
No idea. But I know that like, the whole West and all Christians don't know about the Moses and his teacher story. I had a Christian friend. He was like a nerd. He studied the Bible extensively and religion and Christianity. And I asked him, no, I quoted the verses we just read, like how Moses met this teacher and he taught him all these things. And the Christian guy was like, what? That's the first time I hear about that. So completely unaware. But yeah, there are many movies about Moses, animated and multiple versions where they try to. There's an old one or two old ones, and there's a new one, not a new, but a couple years old, where they try to explain the parting of the sea in a logical way. So you have all these twisters.
That's the worst movie. Yeah, they They twisted every miracle. My God. Tried to make it like a scientific
Yeah, this
happening.
is scientifically accurate.
Oh my God. It was the worst Moses movie ever. I liked the Ten Commandments, even actually that the cartoon one was very good, animated one. Prince of
Yeah.
Egypt. Prince of Egypt is the best because a lot of information is gathered from the Quran in that movie.
Mhm.
But the latest one, oh my goodness. Everything, every miracle was twisted into some kind of explanation. Parting of the sea was low tide.
Yeah.
It was a high tide, and then at that time when they had to walk through the ocean, the low tide, and then it was kind of very shallow water, and they walked.
Yeah. It was the worst script ever as well. They will tell you
Very
about the
bad.
plague, and then they will give you like 10 minutes explanation explaining the plague. And then they show you, okay, next plague. Okay, now this plague happened because 10 minutes explanation.
Yeah, very
So the whole
badly.
movie was just explaining stuff.
Oh,
Mm.
Okay.
which I think this is a very good lesson for us to, all these events that occur, during this time. I mean, events like that would be happening all the time, because God is running everything. So there's a good reason for all these different events to occur around us, and we might not understand them right there, but we see a lot of these things. These people didn't even realize how they were blessings in disguise for people. Like, for example, boring the hole and all of that. Like, if you had a hole in your boat and you think that something really bad happened to you, that you got a hole in your boat, and then you realize that, well, you could have lost your whole boat if it wasn't for that hole in your boat.
Exactly. They will go out in the morning, see the boat underwater, and complain all day, maybe a week, and curse, And then the king comes. Where is your boat? And then it clicks like this. Oh yeah, my boat. Okay, come, take a look. That's when they see the blessing in disguise, and they feel very lucky. Oh my God, I'm lucky. My boat sank. Yeah, people are funny.
Does anybody know how Bible mentions, if it even mentions, about the events and that you just read in the Quran?
It doesn't mention Moses and the teacher.
Bible doesn't mention even another miracle of Jesus, which is he spoke as soon as he was born. So
Oh,
yeah, they don't know he spoke from the crib.
I thought they knew, like, common knowledge
No.
or something. Wow, that's
Yeah,
so weird.
imagine. They still believe
Because yeah,
he's a
because there's a
son of
song.
God. Mm.
There's a song about Mary and the child, and then the child, like Mary was complaining, I think, and then the child said, "Eat from the tree" or whatever. Shake the
But that's in the Quran.
No, an old
I
Christian
don't.
song.
I asked few Christians; they have no knowledge of this.
Let's see. Maybe it's a modern song. Yeah, I can find it. Whatever. So that's interesting.
Actually,
The Quran contains more knowledge about Jesus than the Bible itself.
Yeah, because God says this is the most accurate history. All the other history, either things taken out or things injected, or who knows what they have done to Bible and the Old Testament and all that. So much conjecture and so much information taken out. Maybe there was stuff about God alone, worship God alone, and that's all gone. You can't barely find any trace of worshiping God alone. It's there, but it's like so subtle, and people easily overlook it.
I think it's present in the Gospel of Thomas, and that's like one of the ones that didn't make it inside the actual Bible, but they found it like later, and but they say because it was found after the Quran was revealed, it was found in northern Iraq, that they say like it shows influence from the Quran, but I think it's the same gospel that talks about not doing circumcision. Gospel of Thomas, but that one says that he spoke from the cradle.
Interesting.
Yeah. It says it contains a number of embellishments on the earlier text, however, including a diaper of Jesus that heals people.
I wonder if there were anything called diaper at that time.
Holy diaper? What?
Oh my goodness.
No, let's keep that away from the Christians. I predict some madness here.
I mean, I'm sure there must be some kind of diaper. Like, yeah, there were like handmade.
Behold the diaper.
Handmade cloths. They were washable, eco-friendly.
Yeah, that was actually.
Mm-hmm.
No, never mind.
I've seen it. I've seen those.
That's how I was treated. No luxury for me.
I highly doubt that, Ahmed. Assalamu Alaikum, Furqan. I didn't recognize your voice. How are you?
Hey, Salãmun Alaykum. I'm good. You?
Masha Allah, good.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, let me say something more. So what about Zulkarnain? Is it in the Bible?
I don't think so.
Rashad has, I don't know, it's a theory or it's a fact. He said Zulkarnain could have been Buddha. And I don't know about that. Did Buddha go that far? Like, I know he traveled. He went here and there. But I don't know if this is a revelation or for sure conclusion.
Yeah, he said most probably.
Yeah, he said most probably. So I don't know. It could be his guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if it said most probably, then most probably it was Buddha, right? I mean, that's how I see it. It's under the glossary, when he published.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it
Yeah,
could be.
it makes no sense that it is Alexander the Great, because he
Nah.
was a general busy fighting and stuff.
yeah, no, he was he was like a pagan or something. No?
Yeah, like worshipping Zeus or whatever.
Yeah, because a lot of people do think Buddha was one of the messenger or prophet, ancient. But once again, so much conjecture around him too. Gosh,
Buddha.
around stories attached to Buddha are the most bizarre, and there is no backing. There is no backing except complete conjecture.
I think it was a funny. If you study Buddhism, you reach a point where Buddha says, "Don't ask." Like someone asked, how was the universe created? How was the world created? And then the Buddha replies, "Don't ask."
Nice. Why even mention that question then? Just delete it.
Yeah.
If Buddha never answered, then why would you even make this a big deal?
No, but like they worship him like this enlightened, like
Yeah.
who he was. He knew everything.
Exactly.
And
Making
then he
even
reached that
this,
point. Don't ask.
yeah, making even this comment into something very divine. Don't ask. I'm somewhere up there. Yeah, the worshipping of Buddha is very high.
Yeah, no, he's proving that he doesn't know everything, but the people, twist everything. They twist it to, oh, he knows everything,
But
he's not gonna tell
he
us.
could not be from. Was he originally from Far East or India or a Hindu son, or I don't even know what is attached to him, Sorry, somebody wanted to say something. Can anybody guess where Buddha went?
Far
What a
East,
riddle in the
Far West,
Quran.
and Far East.
What would that be? Between the two palisades.
Yeah, it must have been like a great, like a gorge or valley or
Valley,
whatever.
between two high mountains, maybe.
Yeah. Is it the Himalayas, maybe? That would make sense.
Could be, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't, it's not important, but it's like fun to know.
Yeah, definitely he left his own
Yeah.
original country or whatever the place he was. He
Mm.
went to a foreign land where the language wasn't familiar to him. So he
Exactly.
went quite far. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wherever he went, it shows that's where Gog and Magog are gonna appear from, right?
My guess is
Yeah,
China.
but the thing is, what he did, that whatever the barrier he made, that was a physical barrier. It wasn't a. It was. So after that, where did they go? So barrier, he did not bury them, right? He put a barrier between them and other people. And then the verse about like not until. So God talks about like nothing is gonna come back from the dead except when Gog and Magog return. Is it like that, or am I thinking wrong? So
The thing is,
That is a
That
community which disappeared and it's gonna reappear.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that people will come back. It just means that the
mm,
community will start to reappear, like
mm.
like as continuation, right?
If we look,
And
for example, it could be for an army to move. For example, it could you need resources to move the army, and if you have a terrain that you have steel like mountain and valleys and tar that you can bore through, you can't move your army through that.
mm-hmm.
You're completely blocked.
I think when I read it, it I feel like it shows that they were trapped in that
Mm,
thing, right? So they're probably still somewhere. They're surviving in that trap, and
That's
then
what I feel. That's
right,
what
and
I
the
think.
dam will crumble, so
Hmm.
then they will come out.
So apparently they're invisible from the rest of the world at this moment.
Right.
Yeah, it is some. It's so weird. In England somewhere, my daughter did a lot of research on this topic. So
Uh-huh.
she went to a place. There, the there's people say the Gog and Magog buried, or she has the entire. There was a book a person wrote, and in that area, there were people bodies are found which were like giants, the bones and everything. And this person spent a lot of time there, and they call it Gog and Magog. Um, that
interesting.
yeah, no, I will ask her one day to share, inshallah. This She did a lot of. She got literally obsessed with this issue
Because there's
and
also a lot of cover up in
cover up. There is a lot
the
of
academia because
yes, and a lot of this shit feels like the one with the two horns. That's also a clue to the time of Vikings. Remember, they had
mm-hmm.
these metal, because it's definitely it was the time when the iron was found already,
Yep.
because Vikings wore those metallic things.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
when Zulkarnain poured tar upon the iron or something, so that's the
Mm,
Iron Age already. We know the
yep,
time now. And
exactly.
if you go into the if you go to the um, museum in England, then you see that the horn with two um, the 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 whatever, the two horns. It was found sometime like ancient history in coming in River Thames, near those Gog and Magog things or something. Anyways, I don't have a
Mhm.
lot of knowledge on this, but
Right.
she did all her research. And
Um, wouldn't
okay.
you also comment on verses 109 and also 103 and uh, 4 and 5, so it shows to me that when it says, first it talks about people who are the worst losers. They're the ones whose works in this life are totally astray, but they think that they're doing good, and they've disbelieved in the Quran and meeting God. Their works are in vain, and they'll go to hell. And then it talks about those who believe and they'll go to paradise. And then it talks about 109. It talks about Quran, everything we need. Right? And I think this is important, and it almost seems like it's talking about who these people who are the worst losers, but they probably have other sources besides Quran, and that's why they're thinking that their works are good while they're totally astray. But I think really, when we think about this verse, like it really shows that God's, I mean, like when you think about writing something, that God could write some things so long and so detailed if He wanted to give us more information. That he could even fill the oceans, all the oceans in the world, and even double that with all the trees as pens, and there would still be more that God could write for us and give it to us. But He just chose to give us this Quran because this is everything we need. So if there were other things that we needed to know, in other words, God would have put them in the Quran for us. But the fact that it's not here means that we don't need it. And that, I mean, obviously, it comes with the belief that the Quran is complete, perfect, and fully detailed. If people don't believe that, then obviously, and they think that there are other things that could be there that we need to follow, like such as in the Bible or in the Hadith books or whatnot, then obviously they're disbelieving in the Quran.
Yeah.
But people who follow Hadith and Sunnah, they try to write down volumes and volumes and volumes of books. They need it. And God is saying this, that everything in this tablet, it is still equal to if the information in this is also so much. And the knowledge given to us is very minute. And if God wanted to describe everything, how He created all of that, and what is beyond this, what we know, obviously, there's so much more knowledge out there that we have no clue. And we can barely handle this, We can barely follow each and every commandment of God from Quran and the history. But it is precisely enough for us. Every example, God says, we have cited every example in this Quran that you may take heed. So there is no other example left which we needed for our salvation. But of course, the knowledge of Hadith and Sunnah is way more. That's what you need, sarcastically, of course, to make the religion complicated, lengthy. It's the same thing, Hyford thing, Oh, how could this be enough? God has asked to just sacrifice a heifer. But what do you mean by that? God sent a book, complete, fully detailed. But what do you mean by that? There could be more. Prophet must have sent some extra stuff or whatever. Human being wants to see things more complicated.
Salãmun Alaykum.
Salãmun Alaykum.
Salāmun Alaykum.
I just want to make a comment about what Solomon said, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Sorry, I've been so busy the last whole week. I just woke up, but I was just listening to you guys. This is one of my favorite verses in the Quran, 109. And I remember when studying the Quran like 10 years ago, this was like pop up in my head. And sitting in a mosque doing the Quran study old times, and I'm trying to stress this verse, and I was like this verse is like shocking to me every time I read the 7 oceans. How can you write, how much literature you can write with 7 oceans? It's like allegorically God is telling it's impossible. I live in a place where there's 2 gigantic lakes, and almost every once in a while I have to cross the 2 giant bridges, and it's like a giant lake. One of the bridges 2 miles long, and the other one is 1 mile long. And whenever I cross, I just can't help myself but saying, Subhanallah, the amount of water in just that lake. And when you zoom out in the map to the, like when you start to see the oceans, that lake is not even visible on the map anymore. But when I'm standing on the ground, I can see the water as far as my eyes can see on that lake. And then I began to think that how much water we can drain from it and to make ink out of it. And this is the word of God that is like infinite. So when we were sitting in the mosque, and I was trying to stress that word, is just nobody pay attention. And so when Solomon was reading those verses, that's about 105, 106, they're just requital. 106 says this, their just requital is hell in return for their disbelief and for mocking my revelations and my messengers. You don't have to make mockery of somebody's statement. Your action speaks louder than words. And though nobody says something bad about 109, but people's action, like if you tell somebody, do not eat here, or some kind of rule, and you see people don't say anything, but they violate your rule or your law, it's worse than even saying something, oh, he made this rule, stupid rule, and you've obeyed, but you don't, you say from your tongue that, oh, these are stupid rules, this and that, but you obey it, one thing, but you don't say anything, but you violate those rules. That's a lot worse than even saying. And we see clearly in the world that people are making fun by their actions, by disbelieving, by their actions, they're mocking Quran. And many people, they do it. And they're non-Muslims, they make mockery with their tongue, and they're Muslim, they make mockery by their actions. And God is clearly saying that you're talking about this Quran is fully detailed, and people bring out questions, people act different ways. And if this is not mockery of the messenger or God or his word, and what else it is when God is saying this, I'll read these verses. These are so beautiful verses that say that if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would run out before the words of my Lord run out, even if you double the ink supply. So this is God only saying this is the power of the word of God. In so many allegorical ways we can understand that the creator, what is the status of a creator would be if his word will not run out with the ocean. What can we say about the creator? I mean, it's beyond our imagination in any way we can possibly think that the creator is so magnificently high that the whole universe that we can even imagine is 2 billion light years across the inner universe. He will be holding the 7 universes in his hand. How the status would be. And then the next verse clearly says, one time, say, I am no more than a human like you. I mean, it's just comparison. There is a creator, and then he's saying, say, I am no more than a human, like the status of human. Like you being inspired that your God is one God. Those who hope to meet their Lord shall work righteousness and never worship any other God beside his Lord. What more clear these 2 verses can give somebody? But if you heedlessly walk away from this, that we just reading the other day on TV, and how they slip Prophet's name when they were talking about religion. And I said, this lady is saying pretty good. And then she starts slipping Prophet's name in between. Like, you're just talking about God, and then you slip somebody else's name in it. if this is not a mockery or making insult of God's clear words, and what else that is, by actions or by words. That's my point.
Yeah, they are oblivious. They think they are righteous. It's a good point.
Yeah, Masha Allah. Well said about 109 and 110. The contrast is right there, right after God's wisdom and God's words and the allegorical example. And then Prophet is saying, I am no more than a human just like you. What do you expect from me? You know, I'm just inspired. Whatever God is delivering, I'm allowing, I'm giving it to you, and that's all I am. But how much people have, you know, they actually created oceans of his words, you know. They tried to
Yes.
they tried to create oceans of his words, like he had so much extra time to talk about this and to talk about. Prophet said in the future the end of the days will be like this and that, and oh my God, I hear that so much. The time end of the days will look like that, that a beggar will come to you. No, you would want to give money and there will be no beggar, and then there will be this and that. Every topic you pick up, there are like billions of stories um, attributed to Prophet. Like, he wasn't writing Quran, he wasn't going to wars, he wasn't telling revelations. Other than that, he had so much time that he was talking constantly, telling people about the medicine and the medicine side of Muhammad and philosophical side of Muhammad, and I don't know what else. It's just amazes me that how simply people fall into uh, Hadith and Sunnah's doctrine.
I mean, you just have like what is the word messenger is? Messenger is somebody who contains a message. And if somebody have a higher status, like in a company, the authorities make the law, and somebody is a messenger. And he's mentioned messenger. Messenger does not change the rules. Messenger carries the message and deliver it. A Rasul is the Arabic for it. A Pegambar is like in Urdu, you're making a Pegam. Pegam lane wala is Pegambar. And what more clear could that be? It just clearly violate these two verses and put somebody who is saying in the Quran, it's not my word, it's not your word, it's God's word. God is saying through Muhammad that you say, not God, Prophet, you say, I am no more than a human being. So he's saying, when the revelations were coming, say, I am no more than a human being. But say, no. We're gonna put you in the shahada, we're gonna put you in the status. Many places you go, you see the name of God written on the top, and right next to it you see the name of Prophet. If this is not a mockery of the Quran, clearly violating the God's commandment, and what else where we can see?
And
I
then they
mean,
say,
angels. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
I mean, angels would be like, the verse says that when they said God has begotten a son, the skies, and paraphrasing, is the shattering with fear, that how could somebody say something like that? In similar way, when you have a message that contains that much amount of information, it will be shattering again. Like, what? Now this? We have enough shattered already by listening to all that, and now this one. And the irony is that it depends amount of the information you have You will be questioned with that amount of. I suppose like somebody get half of the message, but we get the whole complete message. And after this message, even a small mistake would be considered huge. In a scenario, suppose you send 2 messages to 2 different communities, and one message was altered and a lot of things were missing, and the other community got the full message. And both communities have different responsibilities now. They cannot blame each other. The one get the half message or maybe portion of the message. Their big mistake can be seen small because they didn't get information. But other community, even though their mistakes were smaller, a lot smaller than the first community, but they got the whole message. So they cannot compare themselves to the first community. Oh, they did far worse than us. They have begotten a son. Well, their message was not that much. You got the full message. We expect a lot more from you. So your small mistakes would even be gigantic, even beyond the first community. So God's system is so just that, like regular people, there's even if they think that, oh, we're not begetting son, but you have the whole message. Your small mistake can be far worse than those other communities. You cannot compare yourself with them, but everybody have to answer for themselves. Then I get asked, people ask me, oh, you don't believe in this hadith or this and that. I said, well, let's talk about it. There's so many different sects right now, and each has their own set of hadiths and rules. I said, then which one should I believe? Which one should I follow? And you guys first sit down. If you want me to follow you, but then there's another sect, they want me to follow them, and there's another sect, who should I follow? Why don't you guys get together and come up with one standard version of your book, then bring it to me, and then we'll study it. I mean, they get upset that you don't follow, you don't obey it. But what if I follow one sect, and what about the other sect? They're saying there's this truth. So they get upset with me then. If I follow you, they will be upset with me. What about third one? They will upset with me. Well, why? No, you follow me because I grew up in that community. Within my family, they were within walking distance. There were 3 different sects, and they were arguing with each other about their laws and rules about hadith. So why are you getting upset with me? I'm rejecting all of them because who should I follow? Just for the sake of the argument. Why don't you guys fight together? When you guys argue with us, sit down and come up with some standard version, then we will talk. That's the hard. It's funny.
They don't say their own ignorance.
Yeah, it's so. If you go online, I mean, anybody can go and check in themselves. And while studying for the religion, I did it, Masha Allah, there's sunnah.com, and you go on that site, and there's all the hadiths written in the different books. And you can go open it, and you go to the original source of that, where they were originally written, and exact words, and you will find, in most, if not all of them, in original, how they were written, and but people don't want to say you this for your own sake. Go read for yourself. It will say, in one place I kind of remember where I've written this. The writer is writing that I have gathered this from multiple sources and this and that. So follow it on your own risk. So it's like you buying a medicine, and there's a disclaimer on in the fine prints, right, that this is the side effects, because the company doesn't want to take a blame. It produces something and it write it down on it that, okay, this is the side, but if something happens, don't blame us. You do it on your own risk. So it's sort of that fine prints written on that book, that they have gathered it on from multiple sources. So follow it on your own risk. On the day of resurrection, don't blame us for this. So, and then and the second part is, when you read those books, it says, like one after another, it will say in a clear that this is gathered from this person, and this person will say that he heard from his uncle, his uncle heard from his grandmother, and there's like on average of 7 or 8 different people until they got to the prophet. So would you be willing to risk your whole life for that one chance on something you heard over and over different people, where the information could have just get lost? Or rather, you have without any tangible question, a book which is perfect in its form. Would you follow that? And I had one discussion with somebody about that how would somebody on average of 8 to 10 generation would remember what was said? And I just asked him a simple question. When, like, 60 years ago, there's some famous person said something. He was a very, very famous person, and I don't want to just pull out somebody's name. And do you remember what he said on certain time or something like that? It was a very famous man. He said, well, it was not important, but people back then have a very good memory, so they could remember it. So all this kind of logic will come in, and just try to prove their point. So, but anybody can go and read it for their own sake, and try to find out. Remember, you have no one to blame on the day of resurrection except your own self. You'll be biting your nails that day. Had I just kind of looked into it, the time is now.
I found a funny hadith. So this is supposedly reported by, I don't know, who cares? Anyways, it says that the Prophet stood up and said, "O followers of Muhammad." Like, what?
What did he say? Sorry, I missed that word.
So the Prophet stands up to give the sermon, and he says, "O followers of Muhammad." You will get it.
Yeah. I mean, how ironic that is. How is it possible? I mean, there's a lot of logical things.
Oh, followers of me.
Yes.
That's so funny.
This is actually a law of system that God says, obey God and the messenger, and that's absolutely true. But if prophet says something, we must obey. Prophet says, walk this path, we must walk that path. But how are you going to prove that the prophet said all this? That's the question. There's no way you can prove. The books that are written, they themselves are saying, please we gather this over a century. Don't obey it on your own risk. They themselves are walking away from taking the responsibility. You're going to impose, no, they are right. This is what Prophet says. How are you going to prove it?
Yeah.
It's sorry, go ahead.
I'm laughing because they are saying that the Prophet talked about himself in third person.
Third person, yes. Yes.
It's just evidence that they are making stuff up. Who talks about himself in third person? Nobody does that.
Yes. It's ironic that it all comes down to God has given us brain, eyes, and ears. Nobody makes stupid decisions in the world. Like if you have a business or you don't go around and waste your money like some people will do, but in generally we don't make mistakes. We take every step wisely. We look at all the aspects, what can go wrong. We're going to go to university, or we're going to go start a business or something in life. When we get married, we look at all the aspects as best possible we can, and we logically make a decision. And we try to we don't overlook anything possible. Oh, let's just check that out too. Maybe so we check everything and we make a wise decision. But the sad part is when it comes to the most important thing in our life, we heedlessly walk away, even though we have the clear, tangible evidence, we have the information, but we walk away. It's like, we don't take it seriously. If that's not a mockery of God, we take the world of religion so seriously. We read in the Quran that many places they say we see our parents do it because they love their parents or their community more than what they were doing. That's what they're gonna do. They don't care about a new message comes in or something. They walk away heedlessly. But the sad thing is when it comes to religion, people follow what their community and what the people do. But when it comes to their personal life, what do they tell? Oh, dad or mom, you don't know what you're talking about. They bluntly disrespect their parents. Oh, you don't know. I know where I'm gonna go to school. I know what best for me. I know what is this. They completely ignore their parents, and I've seen many occasions with people yelling at their parents. Oh, you don't know that. But when it comes to religion, oh, we've seen our parents do it, and this is what we're gonna do. Stop it. Don't even talk to me about it. I mean, this is irony. I mean, this is pretty sad that. When it comes to world life, you can even argue with your parents. But when it comes to religion, oh, we're just gonna follow what our parents do. They're right, or our religious leaders or whatever. I hope I'm explaining the point. Where did everybody go?
Where is everyone?
I'm here.
So another point that I want to make about the Moses story was the tree incident that happens with the boring the hole, the killing the kid, and saving the two orphans, the wall and the treasure. It's God is giving us another hint in this tree story. This is my understanding that if you are righteous, if you are honest in this world, God will protect you. The first story was the boring hole, and there is no mention of his religion, but he was a poor fisherman or something who was was probably honest. Maybe he was righteous or something. So God saved him. And the second story, the boy's parents were righteous. So God went beyond and saved the parents in a way that they don't go away from their religion. And the third story was, even though they were righteous parents, they died, God protected their kids and wealth too. So if you submit to God and trust in God, then just hold on to what's going on, because God will take care, even though something might happen, but eventually God will take care. God is running everything. Even if you go from this world, God will protect your kids.
Yeah, good point. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, subhanallah. You have to be. God is active all the time.
Remember
That's what people forget.
The king that was stealing the boats of other fishermen. One may question, what about the other people, their boats? What about this fisherman? Why God saved him? So there's a reason in every story. Yeah, maybe they were, many times you see in the world, people get cheated, people get their money stolen, and things like that happens. But some people, they get protected. Similar way, those who are honest in their work, they don't steal others' money. What goes around comes around. And meantime, something happens is because if you ponder upon ourselves, did I do something? Did I steal somebody's money? Did I hurt someone? Even come down to hurting somebody's feeling. And if somebody hurts your feeling, we should look back. Did I hurt anybody else's feeling? My actions, my tongue did say something. So if this person was honest, God protected him. Those righteous parents, God protected their religion. And it's in that story. And third one, God protected their kids and their wealth.
Yeah. When God does something, it's basically to kill 1,000 birds with one stone.
Yes.
So everything God does, it's like beyond what we perceive. For example, the reason why that boat sank and the others got confiscated could be perhaps to give the fish population a time to rest. That could be another reason. Otherwise, they would have fished out all the fish, and then everyone would have lost. And maybe the ones whose boat was saved, they were more righteous. So this event led them to become richer later on, and that richness led to more righteous work, and everyone else benefited from it. So there's a lot, many reasons, endless.
Possibly, yeah, that's true. Maybe the other fishermen were monopolizing and giving him a hard time. So God took revenge upon them and confiscated there. Now he's the only one left with the boat. So who's laughing now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and maybe it taught the others not to be arrogant anymore.
Right.
So that's another benefit.
Yeah, Ahmad, I found a funny hadith on lizards. Here.
On dessert?
No, on lizards.
On lizards? Okay, I want to hear that.
Yeah. Muhammad believed that lizards were cursed and should therefore be killed because it was a lizard who blew fire on Abraham in order to kill him.
Oh my God.
This is narrated Sharik. Allah's apostle ordered that salamanders should be killed and said,
Oh my God.
the salamander, blew the fire on Abraham. And then it says, it says the translator provides this interesting footnote. It says, when Abraham was thrown into the fire, it is said that all animals tried to extinguish the fire except the house lizard, which blew it up. Like a zoo.
Oh my God. And they like, imagine all these people with this turban on their head and reading this. Oh, yes. Very wise, very wise. Wait, I searched for lizard and this came up. Narrated Abdul Rahman ibn Shibl. The messenger of Allah forbade to eat the flesh of lizard. Okay. But that breaks the Quran. That's a direct contradiction to the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny. It was narrated from Aisha that the Messenger of Allah said concerning house lizards, vermin. God. Actually, the lizards are good, like house lizards. They eat the insects and all that stuff.
Oh. Well.
That's good. Maybe I should get one.
I found one where water flows out of his fingers.
Okay. It's like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Is it Pokemon?
Narrated Abdullah says, we used to consider miracles as Allah's blessings, but you people consider them to be a warning. Once we were with Allah's apostle on a journey, and we ran short of water. He said, bring the water remaining with you. The people brought a utensil containing a little water. He placed his hands in it and said, come to the blessed water, and the blessing is from Allah. And it says, I saw the water flowing from among the fingers of Allah's apostle, and no doubt we heard the meal glorifying Allah when it was being eaten by him.
Okay. Yeah, that's the kind of food I want.
They ran short out of water, and then water started flowing out of his fingers, and he put more water in the bowl. And then they started eating food, and the food was glorifying God when it was being eaten.
That sounds like a good novel, actually. Like food that could talk, like eat me, or food that escapes. Don't eat me, no.
Yeah, like when we were kids, like our parents used to say, like, if you don't eat your food actually cries, So then we feel sorry for the food and eat it.
Like, is it like water bending? It's a water bender. You can control water.
Yeah.
It's amazing how your mind is sealed. Like if you try to give excuse to like a 5-year-old, like suppose if you're a parent, you promise your kid, I'm going to take you to the park tonight in the evening, and you came home late and you try to give excuses, the kid will not even buy your excuse. That just doesn't make any sense what you're saying, which is logical. But with the minds of people who disbelieve in the word of God, then they starts to, once you believe the original source, the divine source, then you will believe all the stuff that doesn't even make any sense and not even a reality. Then you would believe that either you believe God or you believe the other literature. That's how the system works.
Yeah,
one or the other.
I think I just stumbled upon.
Oh my God, this website is okay. Continue.
Well, it's like borderline was kind of maybe not even appropriate, but it says every one of the sons of Adam shall come on the day of resurrection with the sin of sexual impropriety, except Yahya, John the Baptist, Zechariah. Then picking up a tiny straw, he continued, "This is because his generative organ was no bigger than this straw."
Oh my God.
Oh my God, that's so stupid. So they're saying that he is insulting previous
Yeah,
prophets.
yeah.
Wow, like that was like the first. You have a small pee joke.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, you'll find, that's why you say in it, you'll find anything you wish, because, in Hadith, you'll find anything you wish. I mean, it's
Yes.
very creative, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at this. Like, okay, so this is, they consider this sahih, sahih sunnah or hadith.
Sahih, yeah.
So this is authentic. Okay. Really quickly. The Messenger of Allah forbade to eat the flesh of lizard. Okay, and then the next hadith says, Allah's Messenger was asked about the eating of the flesh of the lizard, whereupon he said, I am neither the eater of it nor its prohibitor.
So that
Which,
they can eat it?
which is it?
Conflicts, yeah.
And according to them, both are sahih. Both are accurate.
Right.
So dumb. This is, oh my God, so stupid. But yeah, I'm gonna use this website to regenerate novel ideas.
The thing is that you can say any hadith, and then the other person say, oh, you don't believe in hadith. You can say whatever you want, and nobody will question. You can go on Facebook, all kind of hadiths are written, and nobody question. Because if you question, you're a disbeliever.
Yeah, I think it was somebody who was telling me, I forgot who it was, but somebody was telling me they had a friend, and in school, like, they'd have to write. Was it you? In school? No, I don't know who it was anyways, but I'll say, they'd have to write about the stuff in the Islamic studies class. And so, like,
Okay.
they wouldn't have prepared, so they'll just like make up their own hadiths, and in the exam they'll get good marks.
Oh wow.
Yeah, nobody would question.
Yeah, because there's so many of them.
No, it's backfiring on the community. The religious leaders have seen somebody saying that, because now people are bringing all this stuff, and even the religious leaders are worrying, oh, this is causing trouble now, and they are promoting that, please verify that it's these, please verify. And where do you verify? There's no place to verify.
Yeah.
How you can verify it? The irony.
Yeah, they made the hadith easily available for everyone now to study.
Yeah.
So that's backfiring now. Everyone is like, what? What is this?
Yeah, there's like ocean of these coming. Every once in a while, somebody will write something on the Facebook, and then people's like, please verify that. It doesn't make any sense. It's about time.
In the past, it was just before the internet. You had these imams, and they had this library of hadith.
Right.
So they had a lot of power over people. They say whatever they want and whatever, and nobody could verify it, because how would they access all that information? They have to buy all the books.
There's a lot abundant of hadiths about like wives putting women down. Is like saying if like hadith something is saying that if your husband sleep angry with you, if you don't sleep with him or something, you will go to hell. Things like that. I mean, if you say no to your husband, you go to hell. They even call, I mean, this is in countries they call majazi khuda, like God, incarnated God or something. Their husband, literally.
What?
Yeah. Solomon knows majazi khuda is like calling God to your husband.
Yeah, but I thought that was like a Hindu thing, no?
But in Pakistan, they call it openly. He's your majazi khuda.
I think that comes from Bollywood.
Yeah, I think it's the Hindu culture is affecting the Islamic religion over there. Affecting other.
But it's funny that they slide into the religion aspect of it.
Yeah, I think all this hadith, this sloppiness of Islam, this Muhammadan religion, this sloppiness of accepting hadith, it is inviting all these extra, like this, all this nonsense, inventing nonsense. It's like an open
Isn't
gate.
this?
You can just invent whatever you want. It's an open gate. So that's
imagine you openly. Sorry.
They should return to the Quran alone, nothing but the Quran. Yeah, continue.
Imagine the day of resurrection. Prophet will says, one of the verses that he'll say that, oh my God, I'm paraphrasing, my people have deserted this Quran, and I think this is in the Surah Furqan, if I'm not wrong. And it doesn't say anything else. It said, oh my Lord, my people have deserted the Quran and my Sunnah and Hadith. No, nothing, just the Quran.
Yeah.
What more alarming that verse than what else?
Yeah, there's a new thing now as well, where the imams and they're trying to convince the people that following the Quran alone is bad, and then they quote some hadith that.
Oh yeah.
That the Prophet said that the enemies will one day will say, follow the Quran only.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that is true. It says dangerous. And they even say that when I was studying the Quran, like 10 years ago, I started reading, and then people ask me, who are you following? Who's your imam? I said, nobody. I am just opening the Quran, and there's a translation, and I'm reading. No, don't do that. You have to follow a teacher, or somebody. You have to go to school or somewhere. You don't read the Quran alone. People will tell me openly, you will get the wrong answers, wrong understanding. I say, how wrong can I get from the Quran? And this is what I was getting right and left. People say, who are you following? Go to this imam or that. But I will read it in translation, and then believe me. And at that time, I would read the verse and I'll try to read that meaning. And then I would go in the books of tafsir and try to get an answer. And I will only get confused. I will read this one, I will read that. And I say, what does that verse mean? And Masha Allah. Now you read the verse, you don't even need any tafsir. It's just like as simple as saying, oh, there it is raining, and you look outside, it is raining, and there's nothing more confirmation you need. That's Quran, because God makes Quran so simple for you. MashaAllah.
It's really simple. I'm reading it in Arabic as well.
Right. And at that time,
so
I would
easy.
read it.
It's so simple.
Yeah, and at that time, I would read tafsir.
Yeah, you don't need tafsir. Just read.
No.
It's so simple. It's so basic.
Right. And
there are just a few words that are bent in a way, in like a poetic way, that makes that forces you to think. Like, but those are the only, breaks, that you have to, that are a little bit difficult. But everything else is just easy. Like 90% of the Quran is super easy. Anyone can understand it. And then the 10% you just need to put some effort, like study the words, the root words and stuff like that, and relate it to the context and other words and other usage, and then you will understand. But other than that, it's super easy.
Right. Like at that time, when I was reading the Quran, and I'm like, you come across red flags, and it's like, why this word translated different? Like one of the words that is Surah 31, verse 6. It says, among the people there are those who uphold baseless hadith and thus divert others from the path of God without knowledge and take it in vain. these have incurred shameful retribution. So when I was reading, like I was reading Arabic and translated, and in Arabic it says lahw al hadith. The word hadith is mentioned. Let me see if I can quickly show you the original, the what do you call this, right here. Yes. ومن الناس من يشتري لهو الحديث ليضل عن سبيل الله بغير علم ويتخذ هزوا أولئك لهم عذاب مهين. So ومن الناس من يشتري لهو الحديث. So I would read لهو الحديث, and then the translation, one of the translations, it says nonsense word or something, and then some will say dancing, and some will translate it as music. And I'm like reading, this says hadith. So if you're really honest and you translate that verse, it will come up like this. Among the people, there are those who upload baseless hadith. But if you translate exactly what it in Arabic is, then you're exposing yourself, right? So to counter that, then you will have to twist the translation in a way that you will save that word hadith. But anyone who will read Arabic will see that, oh, it will say hadith, right? So I would, at that time, I was trying to search why this word is not translated as hadith. And one of the tafsir, it's funny how they try to save that word from translated in it. You know what they would write? They would write few that it's in tafsir, and it's funny. One of the guys saying, I swear by something 3 times. This is how he proving his point that hadith does not mean hadith, because they're like, they're saying hadith translation means, one says, I heard Prophet say that is mean dancing. I heard this is mean singing. I heard but not the word hadith. So this person is saying, I swear 3 times on somebody's name that God mean hadith is, I think he was saying dancing. So this is how a person, a logical, knowledgeable person who went to school, probably, and had a lot of knowledge, who people come and look up to this person, like a mufti or something like that, and is trying to prove his point by swearing 3 times on somebody's name and saying, I swear this what is mean. It is written in the tafsir. And logically, I'm thinking that's not a valid reason to prove your point. Give me something that back it up by just swearing, and you want me to believe you? I don't even know you, who you are. You died like 1400, maybe 1000 years ago. This person who said that, I don't even know this person even exists. On the day of resurrection, I'll say, God, that person say that. God will say, who is that person? Bring it to me. Who said that? That person does not even exist. Exactly. Imagine that. How?
Yeah, but they give like this elaborate reasoning.
Yeah, you go talk to a 5-year-old and try to give him something, a reason. The 5-year-old will laugh at you. What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
They also, for example, they end. For example, the verse would say, support the messenger. It's actually part of a longer sentence, but it is taught to the imams, like all the imams, to read it by stopping in the middle of the sentence, and then pretend that it is a new sentence after that. So they're dividing a full sentence into 2 to give a specific meaning, like Sallu ala, pray to the Prophet, to Muhammad. So they give that meaning by dividing a full sentence into 2. That's how they manage to trick people into believing that it says pray to Muhammad, Sallu ala Muhammad. That's how they do it, and they do it probably in other places as well. Very tricky, very sneaky.
It all comes down to your intention. If you're intentionally diverting, causing, then you will be responsible. Mistakes happens. We should seek God's forgiveness. There's one hospital I went to, and it says on the patient's room. It's every patient room. It says in the big letters in front of it. It says, "Call," like calling the nurse. So call. And then the next is don't fall. So if you're trying to get out, sometimes people are on medicine and they can be disbalanced to fall. So it says before you get out of the bed, call. And then the next says don't fall. But if you separate, if you put don't fall, don't to call, then it will become don't call, don't fall. See how it changes? If you take the don't and attach to call instead of fall, it changes the whole thing. It's call, don't fall, opposite. So that's how you break down the sentence. It can have different meaning, completely the opposite.
Yeah, that's how they do it, to trick people.
Yeah, right.
And they have had at least 1,200 years advance.
Right.
Like they have had 1,200 years in advance to come up with these elaborate schemes to trick people.
Right.
So that's what we're dealing with. But the Quran literally just shatters everything.
Right. So yeah, I like the word you said, shattered. That's a very good word for that.
Yeah, it just exposes everything.
Masha Allah, yes. See, the whole purpose. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
But for the average Muslim who doesn't study the Quran, really study it, they are easily tricked by these falsifiers, by these tricksters. So yeah.
I see God says in one place.
Yeah, continue. Sorry.
God says that if God wills, God can guide everyone and that's absolutely true. It's nothing for God. But the whole point coming to this world, why do you think that every religion, when the messenger brought the message and try to convert people, and then after the messenger leaves, the things come into the religion and it becomes corrupted, then the new messenger comes and try to purify it, and this cycle come over and over and over. And why do you think that after the prophet left, all these injections were start piling up? Why did God allow that? One would think that God could have stopped all this to happen, to give somebody a logic reason. If there's a room and if there's only books in the room and there's nothing else, or there's no negativity in the room, and you have some people sitting in there's nothing wrong they can do unless there is some negative stuff in there, and then they have to choose. If you live in a city, like suppose you go in Mecca and you cannot steal, everybody's following the rule. Nobody's going to break the rule anyway, because everything is pure, everything is clean. There's no test. The test has to be present. What do you do in a multiple choice question? You give somebody a question and they give four answers. 3 of them are wrong, 1 is right. So you should mind you try to go over which one is wrong. But if you have a test where you have 1 question and 4 answers, all of them are right, it's not even a test. What are you going to test? So the negativity has to be present in order to be tested. So it's my understanding, God allows all this negative stuff to pile up, and a logical mind who thinks to decide what is right and what is wrong. Otherwise, if nothing was injected into the religion, everything was on its pure form, there is no test. Just think about it. There is no logical decision to make. Oh, okay, you're doing a test? Oh, what? Question number 9. Which one do you think? Anyone? I think they all are right. Question number 10, what is the answer? Oh, anyone? Pick D. I put C, you can put A. They all are right. There's no test. So God sent us in this world for a test, to use our mind to think and observe what's around us. God doesn't want robots. God could have guided us, all of us, but a logical mind to make a wise decision to pick God or not.
It also tests your sincerity and your intentions. For example, all these Muslims or Muhammadans, or whatever you want to call them, they have a chance to read the Quran, study it themselves.
Right.
And when they go to the Imams who tells them some elaborate lie, they still have the opportunity to reject that and figure things out by themselves. Right. They have that option, but they don't. They fear the Imam. They go along with what the Imam says, and they continue with their with the corrupted idea. And thus God exposes, like, okay, so you didn't have the intention to seek out the truth. I mean, you tried, but you gave up, and that exposes you. So yeah. I mean, it's between them and God, of course, but it exposes what kind of level they are at, what rank. And maybe that's the only rank they deserve, compared to someone who would pursue it no matter what the Imam says, and follows the Quran and trusts God and all that stuff. That's the person God wants. And that's the person God will reward with the truth and wisdom and all that. So of course, yes, that's like you're saying, it's there's a purpose behind everything, behind this negativity. It exists to expose the shift between the weak and the strong, and the sincere and the dishonest, and to give the truthful ones, like those who really strive, an opportunity to strive. Because if everything was easy, and if there was no negativity, and you knew all the answers were presented to you on a silver spoon, you don't have to strive, then how can you be rewarded with a higher rank? It makes no sense. And everyone, it makes no sense. So all this negativity exists to separate people into different ranks, to see who trusts God and versus someone who just goes along with the status quo. So
some of the verses, they're so simple as and it's not even a question to even. It's like I'm telling somebody it's raining outside, and they're not believing you. You take them outside. Look, it's raining. They still don't believe in you. Take them in the middle of the open sky, and then the rain is falling on them. You see yourself wet. Now, do you believe it's raining? No, but we saw our people doing this, and that's what we're gonna believe. I mean, clear, tangible evidence, and then you're scratching yourself. Then you deserve it, man. What else I can do? I mean, you are wet, and at the same time, you are rejecting that it's not raining, and you can clearly see it's raining. It's thundering. It's water pouring from the sky, but you say, this is what we saw our parents do, and this is what we're going to do. Okay, what else I can do? Some verses are so clear, so simple and clear, but still people reject them. I'm not talking about the story of Moses, where this guy who's boring hole. There's a lot of wisdom and a lot of some of the stories that you need a lot of thought to even comprehend or understand. And these are just simple ABC. You read over and over in the Quran, Allahu la ilaha illahu, la ilaha illa anta subhanaka. There's never, and with la ilaha illallah, there's never a mention of anybody's name except the glorification of God, subhanallah. Allahu la ilaha, and many places in la ilaha illallah. So surah number 3, verse 18, Shahidallahu annahu la ilaha illallah. God is bearing witness. There is no God except Him. Shahidallahu, that's a shahada. Allahu, by God, this is a shahada given by God. Annahu me, la ilaha illahu, that there's no other God except me. I mean, there's nobody else mentioned after that. And what is God saying after that? Only the paraphrasing that only the angels and the people who possess knowledge understand this. I mean, that's the irony, that this is completely the opposite of what Quran is teaching. And I don't know how clear you can make it to somebody.
Yeah, it all comes down to the fact that they don't actually believe in God. It's just a social function.
Yeah.
They pretend they believe in God.
Right.
It just exposes them.
Yeah, people don't take it seriously. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, exactly.
People don't even concern about it. Say, yeah, it's there. Let's just go along with the flow.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's gonna come bite at you when the time is up. It's like telling there's a hurricane coming. All the signs are there, and you're just chilling in your backyard barbecuing, and you're telling them, oh, aren't you preparing to leave because a hurricane is coming? And the person is saying, yes, I do believe there's a hurricane coming. Okay, so are you going to do something about it? Nah, I'm just going to chill here and do some barbecue. Come on, so people say they believe in the day of resurrection is coming. So you're like, okay, so you believe. So are you going to do something about it? Nah, I'm just going to chill here, relax. That's the irony of it. And when the storm comes, right, and there's nothing you can be done, and except to just, it's too late. It's like seat belts in the car. It won't save you if you don't put it on. Once you're in an accident, it's too late to put on the seat belts. It has to be put on before to be able to save you. It's not like you're driving, oh, there's a car coming, hold on, I'm gonna put my seatbelt. No, it's too late. Cannot put it on now. Is it on or is it off? So if you don't have this God's seatbelt on you, if it's too late, it's too late. When the time comes, it's too late to put on the seatbelts.
Exactly. That's a good allegory.
Yeah. You have to submit to God before that.
Let's see.
All right, Masha Allah, I gotta run to do my namaz, and I just woke up. Inshallah.
All right. Yeah, thinking of ending the stream anyways.
Okay.
Unless someone has anything to say, anything to add. I guess not. All right. Thank you everyone for joining, watching this Quran study. I hope you learned a lot, inshallah. And please join us on our next Quran study, which will be Wednesday. Wednesday, inshallah. So let's see here. Until then, take care, and please do study the Quran yourselves as well. So yeah, Salãmun Alaykum. Take care.